Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN Weekly for Saturday, February 4th, 2023. And our top story today, it's another episode of Secure Saturday. What one public plan sponsor thinks about the Secure Act provisions. Joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Jim Potvin is the Executive Director of the Employees Retirement System of Georgia. Jim, great to see you. Happy New Year. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
Happy New Year to you. Nice to see you again.
The pleasure is all mine and all ours. Jim, it's Secure Saturday, so we're going to talk about the Secure Act. But before we do, wonder if you might remind our audience a little bit about the state of Georgia's pension, 457 and 401k plans and how you serve members before and in retirement.
Sure. We are fortunate in that we have both a 457 and a 401k plan available for our members. The key one these days is really the 401k plan. Our current retirement tier is what is commonly referred to as a hybrid tier. It's really just two plans working together. Pension plan, which is a little bit smaller than the one we had in past years, as well as a 401k with an employer match. So that's the one that we most actively manage as an employer. So
when you saw the news, and you're a veteran, you have been following the retirement industry among other industries for a long time. You have a lot of responsibility. Are there provisions of the Secure Act passed in late December? And again, it's just, this is just the first week or the last week of January into February, but are there provisions that excite you, your team, and the board?
Yeah, I would say there are. It's funny. A lot of these provisions have been sort of in the discussion for a long time, and you don't want to get your hopes up until the legislation is actually passed. So we're pretty excited about the comprehensive nature of the package in general. I guess for me personally, the one that excites me is really the one that allows for matching contributions on student loan repayments. One of the things that we've been learning with our hybrid tier is, as we encourage people to save for retirement, it's not enough just to say, hey, it's good for you to save more and more and more to retirement. We're only one piece of the puzzle, right? So what this provision would do is sort of allow people to address two concerns at one time, where they're paying off their student loans, but also beginning to think about their retirement even at a young age, which is something that maybe was difficult for some people at times.
Yeah,
so
balancing.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, so that's number one. There are a few others, but I think you wanted to follow up.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's exciting that you can kind of bring the student loan into the 401k plan, because people don't just view benefits. I'm going to get your experience in this, and we can talk about the others that interest you, but people don't just say, I'm going to save for retirement, and then they're done. And then 40 years from now, they're just roll out. There's a lot of things that people do. They have, as you said, student loan debt, they have children, they buy a home maybe, or they rent, et cetera. So it's pretty interesting that this provision is now part of the law.
And it's something I've been thinking about quite a bit. I have two older children now. One is in college and one is in her later high school years. So these are things that in 3 to 5 years are going to be real questions that they're trying to answer as well. And I think about the advice that I would want to give them as they go through it. And it's obviously not focused on this one area to the exclusion of everything else.
Yeah. And Jim, I cut you off, but what else really struck your fancy in terms of what you would like to maybe deliver to the membership?
Well, I'm happy enough about the increase in the age for required minimum distributions, 73 immediately and then 75 down the road. I think that's a good thing. We're a little sensitive to the issue of leakage. We don't allow loans in our plan, but we do, of course, allow hardship withdrawals as is very common. But I am intrigued about the sort of side accounts for emergency savings that would allow people to take relatively small but important distributions from time to time to help themselves out. I'm well aware of the statistics that suggest that relatively small emergencies can result in pretty extreme hardship for a large percentage of our folks. So to be able to give them a little bit of flexibility sort of also fits into this bigger picture, financial picture idea that we're talking about. The idea of being allowed to let our employees elect to have employer contributions be made as Roth. This strikes me as much more important for our younger population than it is for maybe our closer to retirement folks, but nevertheless, the younger population is the population that we're having, the most attention paid in terms of trying to retain them and see us as a career employer, not just a stopping point. So I think that will help a little bit in that regard. Also, the idea of Roth for catch-up contributions. Now, the catch-up contributions thing is a bit of a two-edged sword right now because of the error that I sincerely hope will be fixed in relatively expedient fashion. But assuming that it does get fixed, Roth catch-up contributions and increasing the limits on the catch-up contributions are both good things as well.
Jim, when you think about implementation, again, here we are in the beginning of February. There's a lot of things that have to happen in terms of operations. And then you have the added twist. Do you have to go to the legislature? I know you've got a legislative session going on now. To add a provision to the plan, how does that get undertaken?
Depends on the type of provision. The ones that are permissive, like Roth for 401k, matching contributions and whatnot, I believe we can handle that by a board action. Things like matching contributions to the 401k or 457 plan for student loan payments, I believe would have to go through the legislative process. So it's something that we're having to study each of these provisions sort of in turn and see, what's required, what's permitted, what would be required for us in order to make some of these things happen. And I think our providers are going through much that same exercise right now, but of course on a much larger scale because they have, obviously broad client bases to serve. So I sort of feel for them as they work through this because I know they have a lot of work ahead of them.
Yeah, a lot of good news there, but obviously it creates work that has to be done. Jim, last question. We've talked a lot about your perceptions, the board. Have you heard from participants? Maybe just anecdotally, you're walking down the street, you're going to pick up a slice of pizza and someone says, "That's Secure Act." Man, I'm so excited about that.
It's funny. It doesn't come up in the cocktail party conversations very often. Honestly, one of our primary responsibilities is education of our membership. And I think that's probably going to be mostly true here as well, to make them aware of this and what the potential long-term benefits are. It really is, what we do is very much a long-term endeavor, and it is for the individual employees as well. And getting them to focus on something that really doesn't hit them for 30 or 40 years is a big challenge for us, and one that we will embrace for this as well.
Yeah, well, hopefully you and others, and there's just so much momentum here for saving for retirement, paying off student loans. Hopefully people become more engaged. We all need to do a better job there. Jim, we're going to have to leave it there. Really appreciate you stopping by the program. Thanks for sharing your insight into Secure Saturdays, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Jim. Great to see you. Thanks for sharing your perspective. And when we come back, we'll take a look at some of our best segments for the week. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN Weekly. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeffrey Snyder, and this is your BRN Retirement Update. Just how important is trust when hiring a financial advisor? Well, I sat down with one expert this week who told me that trust is everything, especially in certain communities.
People need to be able to trust those that they work with. And crazy as it seems like a lot of people trust those who look like them. I would even say, in addition, households need to understand the importance of, money management and savings in general, not just for a rainy day, but for those things that are attainable.
So how do you build trust? Well, it takes time and effort and transparency on both sides. With your BRN Retirement Update, I'm Jeffrey Snyder of the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. This week we discussed how foundations lost over $200 billion in 2022. Let's take a look.
They did not have a good year. Foundations were down. Their investment performance was down about 15.5%. Our estimates indicate, which, the S&P 500 was down about 18%. But the real tough spot was bonds. Bonds were down 13%. So these are all market things, but they're all, as you can see, they're all mid-teens, high teens. And so they were more or less in line with the markets, but their asset levels of foundations have been impacted pretty significantly, which may lead to a hit on charitable support in 2023. We model that overall disbursements from foundations were about $95 billion in 2022, which is flat with 2021's giving. One thing that's very interesting about their disbursements, and I make the distinction between disbursements and giving only slightly, because that $95 billion includes about $5 billion of investment fees. So if we talk giving, the number is more like 90 billion. But again, flat in 2022 versus 2021. And the large foundations tend to have giving pacing that's based on a 3-year moving average of assets. And so the years leading up to 2022 were so strong, double-digit returns, that giving has been going up at a 6-7% rate, and now is stalled in 2022 according to our models. 2023 is likely to be down unless there's a really impressive return from investment performance on foundations. We think that foundations would need to be up about 18% in 2023 in order to keep giving flat at the $90 billion level. I think that they're going to have to be one of two things: either get more aggressive in their fundraising and look for sources of dollars in addition to foundations, which they of course already do. Foundations provide about 20% of overall charitable giving. And so these operating charities need to, step up their games in terms of, getting money from other sources besides foundations is one thing. And then also probably look to trim their own budgets or expectations. And I think that one of the things that we're just talking to some trustees about these days is also the impact of inflation on some of these organizations, because foundations have, of the 90 billion, over $10 billion goes out in costs and wages and salaries and benefits, in rent, in legal and accounting. And if there's inflation, on that end, then there might be a crowding out effect in terms of grants as well, which again could have an impact on the operating charities, and their overall budgets. I don't think this is going to be like in 2008, and for the core reason for that is in 2008 there was a severe liquidity crisis, and we just don't have that now. Basically, this time around seems that it's just poor investment performance that's global. You see it in emerging markets, you see it in developed markets. As I said, we see it in the fixed income markets. So I don't see a disruption in the liquidity factors that we saw back then. In 2008, the S&P was down 37%, but bonds were up 5% in 2008. Foundations overall were down in the high 20s. But this, let's assume that there is a recession coming. The ability for foundations to deliver charitable support will be impacted, I think, only by their asset levels, not the liquidity fears that you had in 2008. So I just think that this, from a charitable giving point of view, that the philanthropic overall ecosystem is probably better off. As I said, they will suffer likely harder time raising money, but I don't think that there's the same fear that you saw in 2008.
We also discussed how 25% of millennials are having their parents pay their rent and other expenses. Let's take a look.
I'm not surprised to hear it. I've also watched the number of people living at home tick up steadily, even before the pandemic, but it's certainly increasing during the pandemic. So it's sort of all a parcel of the fact that it is very expensive right now to be a young adult and be out in the world. I mean, wages are increasing, and that's a good thing. But rent is still very high, although we are seeing some numbers that are showing that it's flattening. But there was a Morgan Stanley study that came out recently about the similar phenomenon, and saying that younger people are actually spending more on luxury goods. And so they're living with their parents, or they're getting subsidized in other ways so that they can have a more luxurious life. And that's not such a good thing, because that doesn't really set them up for success. I think that there's just a variety of factors here, but I don't think Gen Xers are still living with their parents for the most part. But the problem is that they are subsidizing more their kids in a way that maybe they weren't subsidized as kids. So every generation tends to do things in a way that their parents didn't. So Gen Xers, I don't know about you, but I learned that when you were 18, you were in college or you were working and you were out the door.
Yep.
But the Gen X parents that I know and am friends with, they're a little more like, oh, well, the kids can come back after college and maybe save for a house or things like that. So the Gen X parents are making it a little easy for kids to stay home. It is partly that student loan debts play a huge, huge role here. And you're seeing just the milestones of life are being hit later. People are getting married later. They're having kids later. They're owning a house later. So everything's being pushed out a little bit. And that's part of what we're seeing as well. I'm excited by things like Lennar, the home builder. They've been experimenting with multi-generational models that have like separate entrances. It's interesting as a global shift, right? We've had post-war. You had everybody move out into the suburbs. You had the nuclear families. Now, now those people that did that are seeing the consequences of that shift as they turn 80 and need to be, maybe need more care. They don't live near their kids. They could encourage their kids to move away. So there's a lot happening there that I think we're going to see some interesting new models of housing and living together to try to cope with that. It has been a roller coaster ride with rents. We're seeing now flattening, and flattening is a really good thing. So we're not seeing a lot of major declines, but we're seeing flattening in most major metros. And so that's giving people a chance to take a break. We're also looking at potential oversupply in some markets with large multifamily, but that's really at the higher end of rents and not in the middle where there's still a lack of supply.
And that wraps up this episode of BRN Weekly. Have a topic of interest, somebody you think we should talk to? Drop us a line, and don't forget, for all the latest curated news in lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more, all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content? Well, visit our website, and of course, all of our streaming partners. We're back again tomorrow for BRN Sunday. We'll be breaking down all the news and events with members of the media, academia, financial services, and government. You're not going to want to miss it. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes. Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the first lifestyle and wellness network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.
Tax audits, tax liens, wage garnishments.
Every day we hear stories like this about good folks who are simply struggling to pay their bills. Each of them are living a frightening IRS tax nightmare, and they are afraid it will destroy their lives.
I'm a divorced single mom, and my ex-husband left me and the kids with a lot of unpaid bills, including unpaid taxes. I was really starting to show my stress on my kids because the IRS had sent me a letter demanding a huge payment from me. I couldn't afford it. So then the IRS was threatening to garnish my wages. I'm already living paycheck to paycheck. That would have put me over the edge financially.
It truly seemed hopeless, but then a friend at work told her to call the tax relief line.
The people at the tax relief line, they told me about something called innocent spouse relief. They worked it out so that all of the taxes from my ex are not my problem. I don't know how that works, and I don't care. All I care about is that I don't owe the IRS a dime, and they are not going to take my paycheck.
Even if it seems hopeless, you should call the number on your screen right now. There is absolutely no cost for the call or the consultation. You are under no obligation. If you are worried that the IRS could garnish your wages, seize your assets, even take your home, call us right now. The Tax Relief Line is here to help you. Now you have a knowledgeable, professional team of tax experts that are ready to negotiate with the IRS and fight for you to save you money. The Tax Relief Line's professionals have successfully negotiated thousands of cases, reducing and sometimes even eliminating the tax debt for their clients. It's very easy to get started. Simply call the number on your screen right now. You don't have to live in fear anymore. The call and the consultation are free.